Hello everyone, Big Clinky here with a bit of an update video now that I have finished with Awakening. I've been working on this project since late February this year, so yeah, pretty early in the year, and I've only just done. Though honestly, it finished at pretty much the perfect time. I predicted that it would be done around sometime in September. I was actually hoping for that, because that's about the time when I'd even be able to start on recording the next things that I plan to do. So this one actually timed out pretty well. But before I discuss what's next, there is still a few matters that I need to talk about regarding Awakening itself. I'm not entirely done with this game. I still have 3 more bonus videos that I plan on doing. Now, originally I actually planned on releasing these bonus videos as like 0.5 parts in between the 3 future past chapters. I eventually decided against that when I realized, 1, that every future past chapter would end up being 2 parts, and 2, I just didn't want to break up the future past chapters. It would just feel a bit weird to just suddenly have a bonus video in between them. It just would kind of kill the mood of the action a bit, so I decided to have all 3 back to back just to keep that continuous and to keep everyone engaged. And now that that's done, I'm now focused on these 3 bonus episodes. Now, these are, the first one is going to be a guide to internal level and how to grind in this game. I actually have all the materials I need for this one made, recorded, and done, so all I need to do is just sit down and record the commentary on the PowerPoint slides that I have, and that'll basically be it. So I can make that one pretty quickly. The second bonus episode that I plan to do is a video where I discuss the unused content in the game. And there's actually quite a lot of it, and some of it's actually very interesting, so look forward to that one. The third one is gonna be the voice actor trivia for the children characters, as I have promised for quite a while. And again, I still need to make bios for them in my PowerPoint slides, but I think I'm just gonna have the cap modifiers for every parent, and maybe if I can fit it in a list of the classes they give, because those are really the only important things. There's no way that I can do base stats, because they vary based on what the parent stats are, so there's literally an infinite number of possible base stats for the children. And as for growth rates, they're not actually all that important. Like I've said many times, the children's growths don't actually matter all that much. It's their cap modifiers that really make them successful. And so I don't feel the need to actually list their full growths for every parent. I felt that my video on explaining how inheritance is calculated was enough for that. But I definitely do want to give some voice actor trivia for all of the second generations, so I'll do that when I get around to it. After that is the issue of DLC. I've seen it very often in the comments, people asking me, are you going to do the rest of the DLC? Now, I did talk about this earlier in the playthrough, and in several update videos I have mentioned this, but in case you've only recently come to this channel, I'll explain how I'm handling this. DLC is going to be a completely separate series from the main Awakening playthrough. I said before that there were only going to be 1 set of DLC maps that I would actually cover during the main playthrough. You now know that those are the future past, and, well, Infinite Regalia as well. All of the remaining DLC maps will be handled as a separate series, but I'm not going to start on it immediately. I kind of need a bit of a break from this game now, and honestly, I feel like this DLC series is going to be released on a strictly when I feel like it basis. So I might do them as just random side projects that will be released just, occasionally, every now and then. Whenever I feel like recording a DLC one, I'll just go ahead and do it and just have it up, but it won't really be a kind of an ongoing series. It'll just sort of be a side thing. Now also, these DLC chapters will be done with a mix of my original file and the file I use for this playthrough, and in fact, I think I'm going to have to start a third file completely from scratch because, yeah, some of the easier DLC maps, like Lost Bloodlines and the Scramble series, I'm going to need much lower level characters in order to actually make those a challenge. Plus, I'm going to need a new file where Crom and Cordelia are both not married, because there's one conversation in Summer Scramble that only happens if Cordelia is not married, and, well, considering she is on all of my other files, there's no way I can show that without a new game. Also, by the way, I really don't plan on showing all of the alternate conversations if the Avatar is married to any of the 4 fan service characters in Summer Scramble or Hot Spring Scramble. I may show Avatar and Crom just because I have a file for that handy, but for everyone else, it would just take, actually doing a playthrough where the Avatar marries that character, especially for the children, having to do 4 separate playthroughs, and then 7 in terms of the other 3, that would take a really long time, and yeah. Also, speaking of which, for the Scramble chapters, the way I think I do it is, I do one video that's just the chapter itself, and another video, well, probably another several videos, given how many of them there are. There's over, 300 conversations across the entire Scramble series, so another several videos where I just go ahead and show all the conversations, and I do that for the other DLCs as well, where I show the battle conversations between characters and their, and the legacy characters from the original series DLC. A few of the characters there actually have variations depending on the avatar's gender, so I might actually go ahead and show those too. Also, when I do cover the DLCs like Lost Bloodlines, I am going to be trying to explain in detail the legacy characters and the origins of all of their skills, so look forward to that too. Oh yeah, one more heads up about the DLC. I've explained this before and I'll say it again. If, and well, when I get around to covering Apotheosis, which will probably be in a very long time, because I don't even own Apotheosis yet, I haven't even attempted it. I've seen people playing through it, but I have not actually played it myself. But when I do get around to covering it, I am definitely going to be doing it with post-production commentary. Trust me, there is absolutely no way that I'm doing that live. If I beat that once, I want that to be, the only take I ever have to do, so I will always just be recording with no commentary, and once I get a take that I'm happy with, I'll just post-commentate over that. Because, yeah, I am not doing that live, trust me. It's going to take way too many resets if I do that live. Not to mention that you actually had to do Apotheosis twice. That's all I want to talk about regarding Awakening. But, as I hinted at the end of the final video, there are a few more Fire Emblem games that I definitely plan on doing in the future. From the view counts that Awakening has been getting, I can tell that a lot of people who subscribe to me really enjoy my Fire Emblem content. And that is a really good thing to know. Fire Emblem is one of my favourite video game series of all time, and I've always wanted to do the series justice when I do playthroughs of them, and there are a lot of games that I would actually like to cover in the future. Perhaps one day I might even get around to doing all of them. I mean, that does sound like a bit of a goal to set for myself, because I could definitely see myself doing all of them. Well, maybe except for Fire Emblem 1, because there's literally no reason to play that anymore now that it's been remade twice. And not only that, again, I probably wouldn't want to do Sword of Seals, i.e. the one with Roy, only because that is my least favourite game in the series, and so if I did do that, I would be constantly complaining about how much I hate it, and that would not make for a very fun thing to watch. But the next few games that I plan to cover in the series, well, I already mentioned them. The first one is Sacred Stones. Now, part of the reason why I want to do a playthrough of this one is, I like it a lot more than most people do. I feel personally this is one of the more underrated games in the Fire Emblem series. I will admit it is very short and very easy by Fire Emblem standards, and that's generally the main reason why a lot of people hate it. To me, yes, those are definite flaws, but despite them, I still like a lot of the rest of the game. I really like the characters, the story is actually somewhat decent, and actually surprisingly morally ambiguous for a... It's pretty much a standard Fire Emblem plot. You've got small nation gets invaded by big militaristic empire, but it's actually a lot more morally ambiguous than those kind of stories usually are in the series, especially if you go for Ephraim's route, which is probably the one that I will be doing. I also absolutely love the music in this game. To me, Sacred Stones has my absolute favourite Game Boy Advance soundtrack of all time. It is just phenomenal how good some of the songs in this game sound. They really stand up with the soundtracks of later games in the series that actually had full instrumentation. It's pretty amazing just how well they did for a GBA game. The other thing about Sacred Stones is, recently it got released on the Wii U's eShop. Now, I don't know if it's out everywhere, I know it's definitely out in Europe, but that would mean that it is fairly easy to get hold of this game nowadays, so if you want to play along, it's actually not too hard. Of course, I kind of wish they released it on the 3DS. I have it on as a 3DS Ambassador title, although that's on my non-capture 3DS, so I can't actually record off that. If I did record off it, I'd probably be recording off the Wii U version. And no, don't worry, I'm not going to use restore points for arena abuse, although, yeah, that could get kind of interesting. That's pretty easily abusable. As for when I'd cover this, now, originally I actually had a thought, you know what, if I need a good quick project after Awakening and before my next major thing comes out, hey, I could just go ahead and do Sacred Stones. That'd be short, right? I mean, it's the shortest Fire Emblem game. When you think about it though, doing games the way I do, this would actually be a lot longer of a project than you might think. For one, even though the game only has 20 main story chapters, 5 of them are a route split. At about a third of the way through the game, you get to choose which of the 2 main characters that you follow, Erica or Ephraim. And each route has 5 unique chapters. Not only that, but there are a lot of things about the story that you won't know unless you play both routes. There are some details that are only revealed on Erica's, and some that are only revealed on Ephraim's. So, basically, I would want to show both routes, so that basically ups it to 25 chapters. Then there's the Tower of Valni and the Lagdo Ruins. Those are 2 sort of bonus grinding areas that each have 7 maps each. And that would be another 14 chapters to record. Combine that with having to make character bios for everyone, this game might actually turn out to be a lot longer of a project than you'd think for a very short Fire Emblem game. Certainly shorter than Awakening, but just realize that it's not just 20 chapters and that's it. Covering it the way I would actually have to do a lot more. Because of that, this one might not actually be until after Fates, maybe. Which is a little weird, seeing as it's actually quite topical right now, because the route split mirrors Fates quite well. There are 2 routes that you choose between at a certain point. They're both quite short compared to Fates, but they each have their own unique chapters, and one of them is billed as more difficult than the other one. So yeah, very much like Fates. Now, the second Fire Emblem game that I will definitely be doing some point in the future is Radiant Dawn. And for similar reasons to why I want to do Sacred Stones, I like this game a lot more than other people do. In fact, this is actually my second favourite game in the series, behind Fire Emblem 4. I recently watched an Awesome Games Done Quick speedrun of Radiant Dawn, and just watching that just completely rekindled just my absolute love for this game. I don't really know why, but it's just... maybe it's just the epic feel of the story, the fact that you play the same war from multiple perspectives, the fact that the game is set up to encourage you to use a variety of different characters, and the fact that with the 3-tier class system, characters' stats get pretty high, but it doesn't feel too easy like Awakening did. The enemy stats are actually pretty high as well, and later bosses will definitely give you a run for your money, even with 3rd-tier characters with ultimate skills. Part of the other reason why I want to do Radiant Dawn is that one of the biggest high-profile Let's Plays of this game is done by someone who utterly loathes the game, and I mean violently loathes the game. And I mean, I don't have nothing against them for it, like at all. They're just, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but it's just that I would like to show off this game from the perspective of someone who does like it. Unlike Sacred Stones though, Radiant Dawn is known for being a pretty long game. Before Awakening came out, Radiant Dawn held the record for the longest game in the series. And bear in mind, it has no side quests or paralogs. The length is purely from main story chapters alone. Not only that, but there is an absolutely enormous amount of characters in this game, so yeah, that would be a lot of character bios to do. So this one would definitely be a much more major project. Also, yeah, like Sacred Stones, which I'd probably record off a Wii, I would need a capture card to do this one. And that's going to play into this update video a little bit later. And then of course there's Fire Emblem Fates. And this one, it's just a little bit tricky to pinpoint exactly when I'd be doing this because we don't know the exact release date of this game yet. And in fact, its release date is probably going to dictate what projects I end up doing next, because if it comes out really early next year, like Awakening came out in February of the year that it was stated to come out, if it comes out in a time like that, then I probably won't have that much time to do another big project between now and Fates. And I don't exactly want a big project to end up getting cut off halfway through due to Fates coming out, because once Fates does come out, I'm pretty much going to have to drop everything to cover it, because I plan on doing all 3 routes, blind runs of all 3 routes of the game, both the Hoshidor and Nor routes back to back, and possibly even some DLC as well. So this will take up quite a lot of my time when it does come out. And again, in the interest of these being blind runs of the game, I'll still say that Fate spoilers are banned on any videos that I make until Fates comes out. And that is, well, I mean, even after Fates comes out, because they'll be banned during the actual Fates playthrough as well. But anyway, even on non-Fire Emblem videos that I make from now until Fates, do not discuss Fire Emblem Fates in any way. The topic is entirely banned. Now, this leads me into, how I'd be approaching this game. Because this is, again, the first Fire Emblem game to actually come out at a time when I already have my capture card, I do want to do a blind run of it like I did with Pokemon X and Y when they first came out. And because of that, this coverage of this game is not going to be as in-depth as the coverage of the other Fire Emblem games that I plan to do. No character bios, because I'm not allowed to look up anyone's growth rates or base stats. Nothing like that, no in-depth strategies on chapters, I'm not going to practice anything in advance, so it would be a very different kind of thing to all of my other Fire Emblem stuff that you've seen me do. But I think it would be kind of an interesting thing to see a long-time Fire Emblem fan playing a new game in the series for the first time. Something that I do want to mention though regarding Fates would be the video format that I would use. Now, the format that I use for Awakening, I did sort of like keeping every chapter usually to one video, and that worked early on, and then of course later and later chapters started getting longer and I had some very, very long videos. Now, personally, I don't see anything wrong with long videos. I personally really like them. And in fact, there are a lot of Let's Players out there who I really don't like because they just don't want to make long videos. And in fact, they seem to assume their viewers have really short attention spans and won't want to watch anything that's longer than 20 minutes. And I honestly feel that's an insult to your viewers' intelligence. However, I will admit that some of the later videos, preparations and supports went on for quite a long time, and the actual chapter would not start until about halfway through the video itself. And I realized this and thought, you know what, I probably should change this, but because I was already in the middle of a playthrough, it would feel too weird to suddenly change the format halfway through, so I decided not to do that. But I think for every Fire Emblem thing that I do in the future, I'll do it like this. I'll do preparations and supports as one. Every chapter is going to be like a Part A and a Part B. Part A will be preparations and supports, and then Part B will be the actual chapter itself. Hopefully that makes things a little more convenient for people who want to see the support conversations can easily find them, and people who want to see the actual action can easily skip to it. So for Fates, what it seems like it will be is that for every chapter I'll have like my castle part and then the actual chapter part. That sounds like a good way to structure things. With Radiant Dawn, I could take a similar approach with the base system, because it definitely lends itself to being split up that way as well. In fact, I could also do the character bios in the base videos. I've been thinking about how to handle that for a while, but anyway, let me know what you think about that format, but I think that'll be the best compromise for everyone. Now for a question that a lot of you have been asking in the comments. Do I have any plans to cover anything involving the Fates translation patch? The answer is definitely no, and for 2 reasons. Firstly, I would need a Japanese 3DS and a modded one to actually be able to record it. And, well, a Japanese 3DS would run me quite a lot of money, and a capture device for it even more, so I would have to pay roughly, probably around $400 my currency to get a modded Japanese 3DS, and that's before factoring in the game, and both additional Roots DLC. So yeah, that would be quite a lot of money for something that I would be able to get for a fraction of that price in another year anyway. Secondly though, and this is the really big one, I hate translation patches for games that are confirmed to be getting official localizations. The same thing happened with Pokemon Black and White back before they came out in English officially. I just hated that translation patch. It was so disrespectful to the official translators, so impatient, so selfish. I just hated it. Ugh. Not only that, but from what little footage of this translation patch I've seen, the translation looks extremely rushed and very, very awkward. It falls under the awkward amateur anime fan sub trap of just translating most lines so literally they keep even the basic Japanese sentence structure, which sounds incredibly stupid in English. Something I've been learning in my translation studies courses is that translating something completely literally can in some ways actually not be a faithful adaptation of its meaning. Very often the Japanese language can be intentionally vague about things, and a native Japanese speaker would pick up the implications of what they're actually meaning to say, but a native English speaker probably wouldn't, and because of that, sometimes lines need adaptation, and I did not see any of that in the very brief footage of the patch I've seen. They also fall into the trap of translating Kisama as various swear words that would not exactly be appropriate in an official Fire Emblem translation, so that's another issue I have. While we're on the subject of the fan translation, a lot of people are supporting it because they're worried that the official localization of Fates is going to be censored. This feels a bit weird to me. Has the Summer Scramble censorship of Tharia and Awakening really got the fandom so paranoid about censorship? It was one image in one optional set of DLC, and honestly, if anything, a lot of the raunchiness and violence in Awakening was actually toned up in the localization compared to the original Japanese version. There's a heck of a lot more innuendo than there was originally, and there are things, for example, such as some of the things that Henry says in the English version. I doubt you could get away with that in Japanese. So if anything, Awakening was kind of reverse censored, rather than actually made tamer. Now the thing is, because I am avoiding Fate spoilers, I can't actually comment on much of this because I don't really know just how extreme the fan service in Fates is. From what I've heard, there are some points that do get very extreme, so I am wondering what's going to be done with that. But again, due to my avoiding spoilers, it's hard for me to actually comment. But honestly, I'm not too worried about censorship since, Nintendo hasn't really done that to a lot of Fire Emblem games in the past. Sometimes maybe one conversation may be censored, like literally one support conversation out of hundreds. For example, Sacred Stones. I think the only thing that changed in that game was there was one support that mentioned lifting up a girl's skirt and that got taken out, but that was the only thing that changed. So again, I don't see much reason to be too paranoid about censorship here. So those are my plans involving the Fire Emblem series. I definitely have a lot of things that I want to do there. However, I also have a lot of things that I want to do that aren't Fire Emblem related. Now, I really hope that a lot of people who've subscribed to me are going to even be interested in things that aren't Fire Emblem. Again, I know that my Fire Emblem videos are the most popular thing I do, but I can't really just do the same thing over and over again, and I don't really want to launch into another Fire Emblem game right after I've already done a really, really long one. I'd rather maybe give a new series a chance, or at least, yeah, try out something of a different series, then just immediately launch into a second Fire Emblem game. Again, I hope that you can all understand that, but yes, my next major project will not be a Fire Emblem game. And I have quite a few things planned that aren't Fire Emblem related. The first that I want to discuss here, I'll just say that I discussed a few of these in my future projects for 2015 video that I did at the very start of this year. But I will say there's one game that I definitely want to add to this list. That game is Radiant Historia. I recently got hold of this game and managed to play it for myself, and I absolutely love this game, and it definitely felt like the kind of thing that I would want to do a kind of a playthrough of. For one, it's a relatively obscure game. In fact, you may be wondering why I'd never heard of this game. It was worked on by a lot of people who've worked on some of my favourite RPGs of all time, and its soundtrack is by Yoko Shimomura, who's done Kingdom Hearts and the Mario & Luigi series, a lot of soundtracks that I absolutely love. Why didn't I play this game earlier? Well, simple. It was never released outside of America. Yeah, Europe and Australia never got this game. Thank goodness the regular DS is not region locked, and this game was not DSi enhanced, because I was able to import this game from America, and because of that, I can actually play the legit cartridge on both my regular and my capture card 3DS. So, I really have everything I need to record this game. I've already played through it once, and I got every single event and side quest done, except for the final optional super boss, who is kind of, well, I can beat their first form, but their second one kind of takes almost no damage from all of my attacks, so, yeah, that might take a while. But anyway, this game, it's got an interesting battle system, it's got a really good story. Its story actually feels very Fire Emblem-like to me. I could quite easily see it as a Fire Emblem game, actually. And the time travel mechanic, to me, is probably done the best I've ever seen in the game. It's really intuitive, and the way that it's tied into the story is kind of cool. Basically, the main character uses time travel as an in-universe version of save reload abuse, which is kind of funny in a lot of cases, and it leads to some very, very interesting side quests. And also a bunch of side quests that you don't think are plot relevant at first, but in the end turn out to be really, really vital to the overall story. My only real issue with this game is exactly how I would structure it in terms of recording. The thing is, the main storyline is actually two stories that are happening in parallel, and you have to constantly jump between the two timelines because you run into blockades in one of them that you can only fix by going to the other timeline and learning a new skill there. Imagine Fire Emblem Fates, but if you had to constantly time travel between Hoshido and Nohr while both stories were unfolding. That's basically how the game works, and very often you spend quite a long time away from one of the storylines, to the point where when you get back, you start thinking, wait a minute, what was I doing again? What just happened? So, yeah, actually knowing how to balance this series is going to be a little tricky, because the storyline kind of branches all over the place. This is definitely a game that I will be covering sometime in the future, but it will not be my next project, because I kind of want to do a bit more research on the game first. Even though I've done every single side quest and know a lot about the game already, I still actually don't know what all the stats do in detail. I know, kind of weird. I'm actually thinking that maybe when I get around to doing Radiant Dawn, I could actually do this game at the same time and have kind of like a Radiant theme going. That would be pretty cool, actually. But if the next thing I'm doing isn't Radiant Historia and it isn't a Fire Emblem game, then what is it? Here's the thing, I can't actually tell you. My next project is going to be in between Awakening and the next major thing that I have planned. This next major thing is the thing that I teased in the very last video of Awakening. Yeah, that is something that I might talk about briefly at the end of the video, but until then, I actually have one other thing that I want to do in between. And here's the reason why I can't talk about it. This is a blind LP. I'm going to be playing a game that I've never played before, and I only know the basic premise. I've seen a couple of gameplay videos, a few trailers, but I don't know very much about this game at all. Now, I will say it's not part of an established series. It's a completely standalone game. However, it is a turn-based strategy game, of a sort. It's also published by a company that is connected to things that I might want to do in the future. Also, here's another hint as to what it might be. The voice actor for Crom, Matthew Mercer, is in the game. He plays the main villain. So that's going to be kind of funny. As for the other game that I teased at the end of Awakening, some of you may already know what that is. If you've been paying attention and are familiar with that game, you might notice that I have been dropping hints towards it throughout the last parts of Awakening. Now, my initial plan was to start that sometime around November, when I get fully off from university, and hopefully my other blind run is done by then. I've checked howlongtobeat.com, and that game should be around 15 hours for one run through, so it shouldn't be that long of a game. But yes. However though, this other project that I've teased, which I do plan on doing as my next major thing, is probably going to be very, very long. And here's the other thing. If I do it or not when I plan to entirely depends on whether we get a Fates release date announced. If Fates is going to actually be around the middle of next year, not the beginning, then I will pretty much go ahead straight with this one. But if Fates is going to be early next year, I really will not be able to do this whole game before Fates comes out. And in fact, I may actually have to split this game in two. There is actually quite a good split point for this game, and I kind of plan on making use of that because the game that I have teased is, let's just say it's not really one game. It's actually two games, and I would be doing those games in chronological order. And by chronological, I mean, think the way Fire Emblem 5 fits into Fire Emblem 4. That gives me a pretty good split point for the first one. And I know a lot of you will be thinking I'm being really cryptic here, but I think to those of you who know this game, you probably will know what I'm talking about. So this project may in fact actually be split into two parts. I'll do the first half of this game, and then depending on the release date of Fates, the next thing will be either Fates or the midquel, and then after that the second half of the game. But that's all I'll say on that for now. So, thanks for listening to this video, and I hope to see you again with my next mysterious project. So, I will see you all then.